Hi, it's Orla here again from A Touch of Sparkle. I hope you're enjoying the videos. Today I'm going to do a Christmas design. I'm going to do a little Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So what we're going to need is, I have painted the nail on the nail trainer and another elf nail polish. This time in light pink. It's got a nice silvery shimmer to it. It's a gorgeous base colour for French, for any nice design. So, what we need for this is the paints. So we need red, we need a little bit of black, we need white, and we need browns. So you can see I've mixed them all up there. I only have some of the primary colours and I mix all the rest of the colours up myself. It just means you can pick whatever shade you need without having to rely on if you have a certain colour in stock. So for the brushes are a little bit different this time because it's a detailed picture and not a one stroke. So the ones you've seen before are the long detailer, the tiny detailer, a dotting tool, the small end, but they are double ended, you could use whichever end you wanted, but for this we're going to use the small end. And then this is the brush I use for most of any type of drawing I do on a nail that's not one stroke. So you can see that there. So just to make sure that's dry, so just going to wet my brush and remove any excess. And we're going to start with the outline. Well, not the outline, but like a rough outline of what we're going to paint. So it's a reindeer, so we're going to start off with the little head. Make sure you can see that. There's the top of his head, the bottom. Just I'm going to pull that up a little bit to put more detail in at the bottom. So I just raised the top of his head up there, and then I'm going to raise the bottom of his head. Now, this is going to be his body. Okay, so I'm just going to fill all that in. So there is the basic shape of the reindeer head. So now let's add some antlers. Using the same brush, I am just going to pull it up to one side and then to the other. And then, so there's one of his antlers, and the exact same on the other side. So there is the basic shape of his head. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to add in his scarf. So using the red, has to be red because it's Christmas, and to match up with his nose, so I'm just adding the red, some not perfect rectangles because the scarf is woolly and we bend it over itself, so you can see I'm covering up where I decided to bring his head down, up a little bit. So there's all the red bits added, and now onto the white bits. While waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to give you a big tip. When you're doing fine detail work, you tend to leave your hand floating in the air and your brush ends up getting shaky. To avoid that, what I do is I place fingers on the other hand out that are underneath the finger. With my little finger on my other hand, I just rest it there and then Sometimes I rest my arm against the table if I need the extra sturdiness for tiny detail. But you'll see doing this will stop you getting the shakes, because there's nothing worse than trying to put a little eye in and your hand going all over the place. So sometimes you'll even see me using 2 fingers if I need it. So I use that for most nail art I do. Even if I'm doing something on the top, I can rest it on someone's hand if their other fingers are there. So like this, if it's needed. So once you start doing that, you will see such a difference to the work you do, because you're not shaking. You can get the detail where you need it and where you want it, without meaning to put it somewhere and then getting it in the completely wrong place, which we all have done. So it just makes it that little bit easier, and it's something that nobody really teaches you when you're doing nails. It's one of the things you kind of figure out yourself, so it's always good to know. So what we're going to go in with now is the tiny end of my dotting tool, dipped into a little bit of black for the eyes. So and there's the 2 eyes. Now back using my brush, I'm just going to load it up with black. I'm just going to do the nose that we're going to fill in with red, because it's easier to fill it in than it is to do a tiny outline around the nose. So I'm going to do the mouth using the same brush, so you can see that you don't need all these different brushes. I only use the tiny detailing brush for tiny detail, and use the longer one for more outlining. Ooh, the paint is still a little bit wet. So making a happy reindeer. Now we'll wait for that to dry. You can see the antlers are almost dry there, so we're just going to add some more detail to the antlers, such as highlighting and low lighting. So mixing a tiny bit of white with the brown we used for the main part of the reindeer. Just going to go over the points where the light would hit. And the same on the other one. Just make sure you can see this. So it looks like the light is hidden and adds more definition to the antlers. Now using a slightly darker version, so adding a tiny bit of black. And when I say tiny bit, I mean like a dot, because the black really goes a long way. So just add some shading underneath, not on every single one of them, just kind of where they join up in the middle, like that. So we can see that the eyes are dry. So using my tiny detailing brush, going to put a bit of white on, then just add a little bit of white where the light would hit. That'll really kind of bring anything to life. I'm just going to go back over the lips where the paint was still wet. So, using my longer brush, just going to wet it a little bit, dipping it into the black. We're going to slowly outline. So you can see by resting my fingers I'm not getting the shaky wobbly line. So that's its face outlined. And next is the antlers. I just missed a tiny bit. That one antler done. So you can really see how quick the paints dry. I've recently started using the folk art paint and I love them for one stroke for doing detailed work. It's a water-based acrylic paint as far as I know and just works so much better. And so there's the other antler. So we're going to go down and outline the scarf. We're going to go 3/4 of the way, well, roughly, because we're going to add a bit of the scarf coming off, blowing in the wind. Between all the colours, just do a rough line coming down. Now back using my other brush, I'm going to add the rest of the scarf in. Now the white. Now let's make him look like Rudolph with the red nose. Yeah. So you can see it looks a little bit more like Rudolph there. So I'm not happy with the shape of his head, so I'm just going to flatten it a little bit. There we go. And now we're going to add some highlights and lowlights. So the same as we did with the antlers, using the brown whitened down a tiny bit. Going to put details where the light would hit. So the light's coming from this side the way we drew it, because you can see the eyes, the light is coming from there, and the antlers the same side. So it would naturally hit this side of his face. And then onto his cheek. And in here. And just above his nose. So it's starting to look a bit more like a reindeer. Now using a slightly darkened version, I'm going to add some lowlights. So you can see just those couple of strokes of a lighter or darker colour do make such a difference. So this one's just a shade or two darker. Because the light is coming from this side, it's not going to hit this side of his face. And then just down under his nose just a tiny bit. Now I'm just going to neaten up his mouth, going in with the brown we used first. And and just making it a little bit smaller, so you can just cut in until it's the size you want. Yeah, so I'm just going to add some arms. Well, one arm because the other arm is covered by the scarf. And there's some highlights and lowlights on his nose using a black and a white. So the black over this side where the light's not going to hit. And white over this side where the light will hit. Take some of that off so I can move it about. Now I'm just going to outline his scarf using the long detailing brush again and the black paint. Now I'm going to outline each panel of colour. And I'm going to add the knot where it's tied, so just going to outline a bit of it in black. Add some creases. So, I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter colour over his nose. So, again, white, just add a little bit more to the brown, because his nose will be sticking out, so you get more. And there is Rudolph. So I'll just give it a second to dry and then top coat it, and you'll see all the colours come out. So brushes are very important to what you're doing. Now, this is my main brush I use, as I said before. You find one that's right for you, and a good brush should always be thicker here than it is at the tip. So if I wet that, you can see what I mean. You should always bring it to a point. So here is thicker than here. And that means it'll hold a lot of paint and come to a nice point, which is what you want. Now, you can get those in any art and hobby shop, online, anywhere nowadays. So I'm just going to top coat it and bring it all out. So you can just see how quick those paints dry because they are so thin. And there is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, just in time for Christmas, and so many other things you could do. You could do a reindeer on each nail with Santa on the thumb. You could do him flying through the sky. So many different things you can do for Christmas that goes beyond a Christmas tree and a snowman, which everybody loves, but it's just something a little different. So there is another tutorial done. Again, if you have any requests, you can put them in the comments. You can go onto my Facebook page at Touch of Sparkle, or you can email me at touchofsparkle1@gmail.com. So, or Brian again from A Touch of Sparkle, and please get in touch, like the video, thumbs up it, and share it with everyone that you know is interested in nail art, or even anyone that wants to do their kids' nails in time for Christmas.